Welcome to Wyrd Wessex. My name's Andy.
And I'm Craig. So Andy, where are we?
Oh, this is the great watchtower of Amansul. We will rest here tonight.
Right, so you're doing your Lord of the Rings voice again.
Yeah.
Look, it's early evening now and it's definitely quiet. You've dragged me all the way to Corfe Castle and it looks seriously impressive, towering over the village, but it's clearly shut, mate. I mean, the gates are closed, the visitors are gone, and I'm pretty sure we're not allowed in. So why exactly are we here?
Well, we're outside a castle, Corfe Castle, to be precise, Craig. It's a real castle. It's not like that Iron Age hill fort you tried to pass off as Oliver's Castle back in Devizes.
Oh, that I passed on.
Yeah. Or one that we have to stand like a mile away from just to look at, like your other castle in Devizes. This one, my friend, we can get right up close to.
Yeah, but right up close is one thing, but inside is another. I'm pretty sure those gates are locked and there's no late night gift shop for me to get a souvenir from, though, is there? And it definitely feels a little different now the crowds are cleared out.
Oh, we're going inside, all right. The real weirdness, Craig, that only reveals itself when the castle's silent, when the last day's echoes have faded and the shadows start to deepen. The living have gone home and the secrets of the past are just starting to stir. This is when the real fun begins.
Wait, are those the keys to the castle? How did you...
Relax, Craig. Let's just say I know a ghost who happens to have access. After all, what better way to experience the weird history of a place than when you have it all to yourselves?
What do you mean, ghost?
I didn't say ghost, I said a guy. A guy who just happens to have access.
Right, so we're getting an exclusive after hours, potentially very haunted tour. Because I'm getting a sudden chill and I don't think it's this evening wind. You didn't happen to bring a large torch, did you? Or an exorcist? Just in case the secrets get a bit too lively inside?
Relax, it's just a few old stones and 1,000 years of bloody history. Let's start with the basics, shall we? So Craig, while the castle itself is a hotbed of activity, the weirdness of Corfe doesn't stop at those ruined walls. The village below has its share of unsettling tales and local legends that have clung to the old stones and narrow lanes for centuries.
Oh, now we're talking. Pubs with ghosts. I'm in.
No one mentioned the pub, mate.
But it's there. Okay, so earlier today you did drag me around the village to have a look around. So over to you, past Andy.
So, Craig, Corfe is a genuinely old village, full of buildings that have seen centuries of life and sometimes unfortunate ends. You were keen on pubs with ghosts, weren't you? Corfe
Oh, yes.
delivers. The Greyhound Inn is probably the most famous pub in the village, sitting right under the castle. Not only does it have incredible views, but it's said to have a resident spirit. Landlords and regulars have reported the distinct feeling of a presence in the bar after closing, sometimes accompanied by unexplained noises, things falling when nothing's there, and faint whispers.
Ah, classic pub ghost. Probably just wants another pint.
Probably. But it also has a connection to the Civil War period. Given its location, it would have been right in the thick of things during the sieges. You can imagine soldiers and villagers sheltering there, drinking their last pint, hearing the sounds of the castle being smashed to pieces above them. It would have been quite apocalyptic. Shall we neck these and head onward?
Yeah. Did you hear that? So next up is one of the most talked about places other than the castle itself, Corfe Castle Model Village Tea Room, which used to be part of the old rectory and also the Purbeck House Hotel. They've both had some rather unsettling activity.
The tea room, so a ghost that likes scones and jam?
Potentially. I mean, the reports from that building speak of a dark, shadowy figure that's often seen, particularly by staff when they're closing up at night. It's not malicious, but definitely unsettling. People feel an intense coldness and a sense of being watched. There's also accounts of objects moving on their own and the general feeling that someone else is in the room when it's supposedly empty. Given the history of the building, who knows what past resident decided to stick around.
So a bit of a polite, perhaps mischievous poltergeist or a curious residual energy? I also heard a rumour about Roman soldiers in the tea room. That sounds like a catering nightmare.
Yeah, you heard right. I mean, there have indeed been fleeting reports, mostly anecdotal, mind you, of figures resembling Roman soldiers seen near the model village and tea room area. It's not a strong, consistent haunting, more like a brief residual echo, but yeah, imagine trying to serve a Legionnaire cream tea.
Yeah, that's it. Like, sod the scones, where's the garum? The real question, though, is not about a residual echo or whether it's a real Roman soldier. It's, Did the Roman soldier have the jam on first or the cream? We won't get into that again. Are there any other more general darker village tales perhaps connected to the castle's destruction or specific parts of the village itself?
There are indeed, given that the stone from the slighted castle was actually used to rebuild and repair many of the village houses after the Civil War. You could say that the very fabric of the village is imbued with the castle's traumatic past. Some theorise that residual energy from the destruction or even spirits might have literally been built into the homes.
That's truly chilling thought, really. You know, sort of you might have a piece of dungeon wall in your living room, potentially still carrying this despair of a forgotten prisoner.
Exactly. It's not a specific apparition, but a pervasive sense of old energy. And then there are general reports of shadow figures seen darting across the older, narrower lanes after dark, or people feeling the sudden intense waves of sorrow and anger when walking through certain parts of the village without any clear cause.
All right, Craig. Well, let's get back to the castle and talk a bit more about its history. Let's go.
So we are here with Alistair. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here with you guys right now.
Do you want to just explain to people what it is you do here?
Cool. So I'm Alistair. I run like a blacksmithing business in Corfe Castle village, also with the castle doing different events and things. Also I do storytelling or like history guides of the castle, taking people around the castle, talking about the history and sort of for this conservation project. Talking about the history, the characters, the architecture, taking people up to this really special section of the keep that we put in for the conservation. The top of the keep, basically, the top of this annex section, which is like Henry I's private quarters and a magical, amazing, rare opportunity.
Do you want to go?
I mean, if it's magical and rare, sort of opportunity, could we maybe go?
Yeah, I'd
Can you take us up there now?
love to take you guys, man. Yeah, let's do it.
Right, fantastic, shall we?
Oh, cool.
So we are up in the King's Tower.
King's View Tower.
King's
yeah.
View Tower. Alistair's brought us up here. It's open for a limited time, isn't it?
It's all part of this big conservation project the National Trust are doing. It's the biggest project that's ever happened here. 3-year, £2 million to conserve the castle as much as possible. They put in this platform at the top of this south annex, which is the extension of the keep, which Henry I finished, added the extension. It's basically his private quarters. So his chapel, his toilet, has got some amazing features that were discovered up here. It's an incredible bit of fundraising and promotion for this conservation project. We're taking people, it started in December 2024, we're going until the end of 2025, and then it's all getting taken down.
Wow.
Yeah, feeling quite lucky to be up here, yeah?
Yeah, it's quite a way up as well. There's a lot of stairs to get up here. You don't realise how high up it is until you come up, do you?
Yeah, I think Henry I had a good view while on his toilet
Yeah,
or in his private
definitely.
chapel, you know.
Royal throne.
Yeah, the throne. What hits
the
me
real
really
throne.
differently up here is that like there's been zero access to this bit for 400 years since the castle was destroyed in the Civil War, 1646. But like, it's not like people were up here before then. This is the exclusive Henry I and the subsequent kings and high lords and ladies, their place. So throughout history, I don't know how many people would really have been up
None of
here.
us peasants.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, you know, sort of maybe servants, I guess, you know,
Yeah.
sort of, you know, looking after things. But that's, yeah, it does feel very special. And, you know, sort of we were talking earlier about just, you know, sort of features of the castle that you really enjoy, you really feel connected to. Is there anything in particular in this tower that really grabs you?
Definitely. So definitely the plaster just behind us. There's a massive section here with a massive bit of like 800-year-old medieval plaster. I connect to this the most because of some of the natural like weathering is really beautiful patterns, tree rung, a little bit like a tree rung or massive fingerprint. It's just the natural weathering, the lichen like growing through the wall and the plaster. It's just like a natural takeover of it. but it's how these rooms were decorated as well. So they'd plastered, paintwork, tapestries. So it's amazing to imagine the king's rooms like so highly decorated, and just the human connection. I was saying, a human plasterer up here, plastering these walls with his little trowel, and I really feel that from that section. So there's some amazing bits up here of architecture as well, but in terms of connecting like a human level,
And
that
yes,
section.
sort of untouched really, like until last year, sort of more or less since the tower was slighted. You know.
Yeah, 1646. I mean, damn.
Has I've got to ask. Obviously, we're here a lot talking about ghost stories connected and sort of the supernatural. Has anyone already reported anything up here yet? Has anyone said anything?
Oh, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but we've got the peregrine falcons crying just
Probably
above
won't
us.
pick up on the mic, but yeah. The
Okay.
peregrine
Yeah, there's peregrine falcons here and
above us.
oh, hello.
Wow.
Don't know if that's saying hello or sort of telling us
It's
off.
because you asked about the paranormal.
That's
Yeah,
it. That's
well,
it. It's a sign.
Spirit animal, like.
Well, like Badbury Rings, I think they say it's Arthur's spirit in one of the ravens flying around.
Oh, cool.
Maybe Henry's up there.
Maybe that's Henry the. Yeah, maybe it's a
makes
Henry the
sense. It being a
First.
falcon,
It would, yeah.
Um,
In terms of the ghost stories, though, up here in the tower, since we've done this, I haven't necessarily heard of anything. But the main ones I've heard in the castle is about Edward the Martyr, who was the teenage Saxon king that was killed at the gates by her stepmother, and the knights, these 22, 24, 20-something French noble knights that were executed by King John in the dungeon. And there's lots of different stories about seeing ghostly images or cries of these people.
Well, being being the fact that his father had this tower, sort of had these rooms constructed, John would have been up here when he stays here,
True.
so he may well have ordered that while being up here, so maybe there is a bit of a connection there. What do you reckon?
I was going to mention as well, whilst we were setting up, how you thought you'd heard someone coming up the scaffolding stairs.
Yeah,
I was
just
going to say
before.
stairs, but it was scaffolding, so...
Yeah, and like sometimes it happens when we do the tours up here and you hear people trying to get in. And as we were just chilling up here for a second, I swear I heard like footsteps up the.
And there's no one here but us at the moment.
Castle,
We've got the
yeah.
place to ourselves.
Literally whipped his head round, banged his head on the scaffold and everything. It was
100%.
alarmed.
Yeah, it was like weird. Yeah, weird moment. Good point.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that too much, but you're right. Yeah.
The seasoned investigator here,
Yeah, you saw the sign. Wow.
On the ground investigators.
I mean, the other sort of thing up here potentially with like ghost stories is there were a lot of like hostages in the castle. So Henry I defeated his brother Robert, who was the Duke of Normandy, to like win the English throne. Apparently, Robert, there's a bit of speculation, but was kept as a hostage up in the keep somewhere in the top section. Also, Eleanor of Brittany was captured, which was King John's niece. She was kept here as a hostage because of her right to rule. They would have probably been maybe up in this section, maybe the top section, which would just be above us. I mean, we don't know exactly some of where they'd be kept, but
Yeah. Just a correction to myself, actually. Was it Henry I built this?
yeah.
So yes, I didn't. Yeah, so I mentioned King John. It wasn't King John. It was Henry II was King John's father. So
Right.
Start again.
So just to show that I do vaguely know what I'm talking about with the royal line,
Oh, we believe that,
but my
definitely.
point would be, King John would have been up here, staying in these rooms.
Yeah, there would have definitely been some involvement, and eventually he built a whole extra section to the castle called the Gloriette, which was his personal palace. So maybe when he was first up here, there was some sort of like, bad juju or some sort of thing he didn't like. I mean,
Maybe.
he built a whole separate area to maybe escape. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I think this was one of the areas he quite enjoyed hunting in
Yeah.
Purbeck sort of forest. He spent a lot of time in the southwest, but sort of between here and sort of other bits of Wiltshire and places like that. I know Marlborough Castle he spent a lot of time in as well. But so it's clearly an important place to him and sort of what he saw as a bit of a seat of his power.
100%. What a strong, powerful castle on this mound.
Yeah.
Apparently it was painted white on the outside. The mound is about 55 metres and the keep is about 21 metres. Just in the sky, painted white, defending this horizon here. It's nuts, yeah.
Yeah, just the most prominent thing in this sort of cutting in the hills, you see this big rising mound with this big tower on top. It's got to have been, well, it is that stamp of power, isn't it? Sort of, I'm here, this is ours, you're not getting past about paying a toll, paying respect, whatever.
Right. What do you guys think up here? Sorry to interrupt you, Craig.
No, it's fine. What do we think up here?
Yeah, well, give me what do you guys think up here after coming up here talking about some of this stuff? What are you feeling? What are you thinking?
He's interviewing us now. I like this.
I don't know. It was windy. So I'll be honest. So from my day job perspective, I'm like thinking you're talking about plasterers and painting and stuff, and I'm thinking about health and safety, and I'm like, would I want to be going up there on
Legislation was a
Yeah.
little bit different back then, though.
possibly? But actually, I was going to ask you just to bring it back to you again,
Yeah.
because obviously you work here a fair amount. I've read some accounts of people seeing lights on the wall when the castle's shut.
Ah, yeah.
And I wondered if there was a specific place because no one mentions exactly where. And I thought if it was somewhere like this where people couldn't even access, it couldn't be kids jumping the fence and going around with the torch. It would have to be something weird, I guess.
Or podcasters.
Yeah, podcasters.
Not
it's-
up here because you couldn't get
Oh,
up here
yeah.
before.
I think a lot of people more recently have seen maybe people getting up here, local kids or something is the
Yeah.
sort of theory. I've seen people up here climbing on different sections of the wall and things. I've not seen that or heard too much about that. But like you said, if it was in a section that was really inaccessible,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really explain that, isn't it? It's one of those like, what is that?
They just talk about lights
What's-
on the walls and in the towers and stuff. They don't
Yeah,
specify where.
I got the impression, sort of from the accounts I've read, it tends to be on the tops of the walls.
Right.
I mean, that could be up here, but just sort of like
Yeah.
seen from the village direction and down there, sort of along the tops of the walls.
Yeah, the main place I've seen people is climbing in the West Bailey. There's the old hall, which is speculating it's the old Saxon hall. I see people climbing on that section the most, or like any kind of activity when the castle's shut in the old hall.
Fantastic. Should we have a? Oh, we can hear the peregrines again.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they're telling us to leave. I mean, I was thinking maybe we go and have a look at the rest of the castle.
Let's do it.
Nice one, guys. Good to have you up here. Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you for taking us up. This really, as sort of doing this podcast and sort of you helping us out with this, but also as sort of people that are quite nerdy into their history, you know, this means a lot. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys. Nice one.
Wicked.
Nice one.
Yeah, so Andy, speaking of how we're actually in here, I'm still waiting on an explanation, mate.
Well, the lovely folks at Corfe Castle have agreed to let us record here for the evening. Well, we're actually taking part in their open weekend, providing a bit of living history, a dash of entertainment for the crowds, a promise of Craig's soul, and of course some combat displays.
Wait, what?
Combat displays. So being in here like this after hours really brings home why this place was so vital. Corfe Castle sits right in the middle of a natural gap in the Purbeck Hills, commanding the absolute control of the key route between Wareham and Swanage. You can feel the strategic importance of it from every angle, even now. The very name Corfe comes from the Old English Ciofan, which meant cutting or a gap, in direct reference to the natural pass it so fiercely guarded.
And it's been guarding it for a very long time. Archaeologists have found post holes here from a Saxon royal hall dating back to the 9th century. So even before the Normans turned up, this was a place of power and prominence. It was supposedly a hunting lodge for King Alfred the Great himself, and you can just imagine Saxon lords feasting and plotting within these very grounds. But then the Normans arrived and they weren't messing about. After the conquest, William the Conqueror saw this site and knew he had to secure it. So a new imposing Norman hall took the place of that old Saxon one built on William's direct orders. More stonework went up, massive blocks, really stamping the conqueror's presence on the land. Over the next centuries, it evolved, shifting between being a grand royal home, a terrifying royal prison, and as you'd expect from a place like this, the scene of several brutal sieges.
And the first of those wasn't exactly a picnic, was it?
Not at all. That first major siege came during one of the most chaotic periods in English history, what's now known as the Anarchy. So Henry I, who had already significantly fortified Corfe, adding that mighty keep, he died. Problem was, his only legitimate son, William, had died tragically 15 years earlier in the infamous White Ship disaster. That left Henry with no male heir. Instead, his daughter Matilda was declared his successor. Now, England had never been ruled by a woman, and her cousin Stephen of Blois,
Blois.
Blois,
Blois.
Blois,
Blois. Bleh.
Bleu. Stephen of Bleu decided. Now England had never been ruled by a woman, and her cousin Stephen of Blois decided now wasn't the time to start. He swiftly usurped her, sparking a brutal civil war that tore England apart. So lines were drawn and Corfe Castle picked her side.
And it picked Matilda's side, so Stephen, always keen to secure strategic strongholds, laid siege to it. He even apparently built a massive siege tower, a proper wooden monster, to try and take the fortress. But despite weeks of trying and smashing against these incredibly strong walls, the attack was eventually abandoned. Corfe held firm for Matilda, a testament to its early strength, even if she eventually lost the wider war, but then kind of won it again afterwards. And so it earned its reputation for being a pretty unyielding place early on. Later it became a royal prison, right? I'm picturing King John in charge, probably not the kindest of jailers.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Andy. He apparently loved staying at the castle when he was hunting in the royal forest of Purbeck. He saw it as a safe, remote base for his activities, and it was certainly secure for his prisoners. Among them were the highborn, like his niece Eleanor of Brittany, who was held in what they called honour, which basically meant a comfortable cage for years. But some not so highborn did not have it so easy.
I'm guessing not so easy as an understatement when it comes to King John's hospitality.
Yeah, it's a massive understatement. He had a particularly nasty reputation here. It is said that a group of 22 captured French knights were starved to death right here in one of Corfe's dungeons under John's direct orders. This place saw some serious suffering back then, not just from the battles, but from slow, deliberate cruelty.
Eventually the castle was gifted by the crown, sold and bought by others, moving through different noble hands. But its ultimate dramatic end came during the English Civil War. It was besieged once more, well, not once, but twice, during that bloody conflict. After its final capture, it wasn't simply taken over, it was ordered to be slighted.
Slighted?
Yeah, slighted. The parliamentarians, having finally captured it after a long struggle, and with the war still raging on, didn't want it to risk it falling into royalist hands again. So they decided to completely destroy it, but these walls were so incredibly strong, built over the centuries, that they couldn't be destroyed so easily. So instead they had to systematically blast and tumble them with gunpowder, leaving behind what we can see today. It's a testament to the history of Purbeck, one that even in this ruined state remains an iconic site. It's so epic it's become one of the flagships of the National Trust. That deliberate, brutal destruction is why the castle looks the way it does. Not from age, but from an act of war meant to erase its strategic power forever.
Yeah, it's true for me at least. If a ruined castle is mentioned, Corfe is often the first image that springs to mind. Those broken walls jutting out, shattered but proud, still dominating the landscape after centuries. You could almost feel the echoes of the explosions, the deliberate unravelling of centuries of building.
Well, we could happily walk around nerding out about the history of this wonderful place all evening. We like our Wessex landmark with a good bit of weird, and this place, Craig, is absolutely steeped in it. The history and the story of Corfe Castle is not only long but incredibly bloody, filled with assassinations, murders, betrayals, and as you might expect, a ghost or two. Ghost galore, in fact. So, Craig, have you ever thought about the sheer horror of an oubliette?
Oh, I know that word. Sounds French. Forget-me-not kind of thing?
Exactly, it comes from the French word oublier, meaning to forget, and that was precisely the point. Imagine it, not just a cell, but a truly wretched form of dungeon, often bottle-shaped with just one small opening high up in the ceiling, where you were lowered in, and that was it.
So no door, no way out, just dropped in.
No door, no windows, just cold, damp stone. Once you were down there, you were out of sight, out of mind, and very often out of life. You weren't just imprisoned, they were literally forgetting you. Forgotten by the outside world, forgotten by your captors, left to rot in the darkness.
That's a truly chilling concept. If King John was using dungeons here to starve people, I can easily picture him having a few forgetting places where no one would ever hear a scream. It's a kind of psychological torture on top of the physical, isn't it? The sheer despair of being so utterly removed.
I mean, absolutely, yeah. The very idea of being tossed into one, knowing your existence had simply been erased from the world above. It's enough to drive someone mad, or worse.
Right, well, let's just say I'm glad I'm not going to be lowered into any holes tonight. I mean, yeah, that's a truly weird bit of history, though, isn't it?
Weird indeed, Craig. But that particular horror was intentional. What about the kind of weirdness that's left behind accidentally by sudden, brutal acts? Because if any place is going to cling to a spirit, it's the very spot where a young king was betrayed and murdered. We're talking, of course, about the phantom of King Edward the Martyr. In 978 AD, this 15 or 16-year-old boy king visits his stepmother, Queen Aethelthryth, and his half-brother Ethelred, who'd later be known as the Unready, supposedly for a friendly visit. But as he's just mounting his horse, he's ambushed, stabbed, his horse bolts, dragging his body, and he bleeds out. There's a strong emotional imprint to leave on a place, don't you think? Right here within these ancient walls.
What are the stories of him? Does he still wander these ruins looking for justice? Or?
Well, the most common sightings, and what many visitors, even staff, have reported over the years, is the apparition of a young boy often seen dressed in white or light-coloured clothes, sometimes almost translucent. He's typically spotted around the older parts of the castle in the shadows of gateways and ruined halls, essentially anywhere his presence might linger from those final terrifying moments. People report feeling sudden, inexplicable cold spots in various parts of the ruins, even on a mild evening like this one. And there have been reports of faint, almost indistinguishable whispers, whimpers, sometimes a feeling of immense sadness or confusion, as if the poor young king is still disorientated by his sudden, violent death. Some people even claim to have seen a white, shimmering figure moving quickly through the archways or across open spaces, only to vanish when approached. It's like a flash of residual energy, a replaying of his final moments here.
Yeah, you know, like just standing here now, it does feel a bit heavy, doesn't it? Like knowing what happened. It's not hard to imagine a lost spirit. You often hear about child spirits being the most vulnerable, just trying to make sense of what happened to them. And given how brutally his body was treated afterwards, supposedly hidden in a hut and then thrown down a well at Wareham, but later his remains were formally interred at Shaftesbury Abbey, where he was venerated as a saint. So we've got a proper holy resting place, but clearly his spirit never truly settled there. It seems to be still stuck here, reliving that final terrifying moment of betrayal.
And that kind of unfinished business always makes for the best ghost stories, doesn't it? So the murdered boy king wandering his final moments. Who's next on Corfe's list of spectral residents? I'm guessing it has something to do with the other hugely dramatic chapter of the castle's history.
Yeah, if Edward the Martyr represents the treachery of the past, then Corfe's most iconic ghost embodies its ultimate defiance and tragic end. We're talking, of course, about the legendary White Lady, widely believed to be the spirit of Lady Mary Banks herself.
Brave Dame Mary, the woman who stood up to Cromwell's army. Her story is absolutely incredible. She defended this place twice during the English Civil War with a small garrison and a handful of loyal women against overwhelming odds. She was an absolute force fighting for her king and her family's home. She held out against 2 brutal sieges for over 2 years, rallying her people, even reportedly rolling stones and hot embers down on the attacking parliamentarians. But in the end, it was betrayal that brought Corfe down, not brute force. One of her own officers, Colonel Pitman, switched sides, letting the enemy in through a sally port. After that, the castle was doomed and then deliberately slighted, blown to bits, to make sure it could never be a royalist stronghold again.
And she would have seen that. It's a gut-wrenching end to such a heroic stand, so it makes perfect sense that her spirit would be tied to these ruins.
Exactly. The reports of the White Lady are among the most frequent and compelling at Corfe. She's described as a regal, dignified figure, often seen gliding silently along ramparts and battlements, particularly in the fading light or around dusk. She's almost always depicted in a flowing white gown, shimmering softly in stark contrast to the dark stones.
So not headless, because sometimes when you hear White Lady, that's the first thing that springs to mind.
You know, some people do actually claim she's headless, even though there's no historical reason for it. But usually she's described more as a regal figure, with her head bowed, with her face just indistinct. The key element is her presence, a powerful sense of melancholy, defiance, and protective watchfulness. She's seen pacing as if still overseeing her fortress, or sometimes standing perfectly still, gazing out over the Purbeck Hills as if reliving the moment of her defeat at Corfe's destruction.
Beyond the ramparts, she's also been seen around the outer bailies and near the keep, perhaps inspecting the damage or just remaining in the heart of what was once her home. Visitors and staff have reported strong feelings of being watched, inexplicable cold drafts in enclosed places, and even a faint scent of lavender or potpourri.
Lavender, that's a nice gentle touch for a ghost, considering the brutality she faced. It makes her feel more sort of personal, less like a terrifying apparition.
It adds to the complexity of her haunting, doesn't it? I mean, she's not a malevolent spirit, but rather a profoundly and perhaps eternally loyal one. Some theories even suggest that her spirit isn't just tied to the betrayal of the castle, but to the deep love she had for her family and her home, and the grief of seeing it utterly destroyed. She's still here because a part of her heart was shattered with these stones.
You know, I've heard some people try and link the White Lady to other figures like Isabella of Angoulême, King John's wife, who was supposedly imprisoned here for a time. But honestly, the story of Lady Banks is so much more dramatic with... Sorry, it's the rain. Sorry, I just fucking saw something at the corner of my eye there.
Keeping that in.
Fucking right.
And he's getting
It's
scared.
just, yeah, it's just the rain coming down. It's like this shimmering... Keep an eye on that, Craig, while I'm reading.
Keep an eye on the rain.
Yeah, just in case it's not rain.
It's definitely wet.
You know, I've heard some people try and link the White Lady to other figures, like Isabella of Angoulême, John's wife, who was supposedly imprisoned here for a time. But honestly, the story of Lady Banks is so much more dramatic and directly tied to the castle's ultimate fate. It just fits her. It's her castle, her defiance, her ghost. And speaking of powerful women, Corfe has a few more spectral figures, and some aren't quite so dignified. One of the most frequently reported types of activity here are the phantom soldiers and guards. People often report hearing the faint sounds of marching footsteps on cobblestones that aren't there anymore, or the distant clank of armour from areas where garrisons would have stood guard. Sometimes it's just a feeling of being watched intensely, as if a long-dead sentry is still doing his rounds.
Yeah, these aren't full apparitions like Lady Banks, more fleeting, a shadow darting behind a ruined wall that isn't quite right, or the distinct impression of a figure quickly turning a corner when no one else is around. There have also been reports of disembodied shouts or groans coming from would have been the battlements or the inner courtyards, like the castle itself is playing back echoes of its violent past.
Whispers are heard when no one is speaking. Lights have flickered in areas without electricity. Unexplained soft glows or moving pinpricks of light seen on the ancient walls and in secluded alcoves after dark. Security systems are sometimes tripped for no reason after hours. It's as if the energies here are just that potent, stirring things up without a clear intent. So, yeah, that was our night at Corfe Castle.
Yeah, we did go for a bit of a wander. The pink lights turned off, didn't they? And so we thought we'd go back up, but
Yeah.
nothing happened.
No.
As usual.
Yeah.
I think, as we said before, it's people that are scary.
Yeah, mainly Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I was kind of disappointed in a way it wasn't like mid-recording when we were up there earlier that the lights didn't go off. I think that would have put the wind up us a little bit.
Yeah, probably. I'm assuming they were on a timer because they did just suddenly go off.
No, it's just Alistair. He hung around just, right, this will get him. I figure it's got to be a lever, a nice big solid, you know, it can't be a switch. But yeah, were there any bits that you felt more uneasy than others? I mean, naturally, that last bit recording in the guard room, you know, it's a bit uneasy in the sense that you are enclosed, but I think that's more of a, again, that's more of a natural reaction, isn't it, to be surrounded by walls and have that echo around you.
Yeah, I didn't feel anything, I don't know, supernatural.
I know I think it did leave a lasting effect on you, though. I mean, you're looking a little bit queasy. You're saying you're like feeling this headache.
I think that might have been the mead you fed me.
I think you drank it willingly.
No, he forced me. I had to sit here and drink mead.
Yeah.
Until 12:30. And he finally let me go to bed.
You might notice that we are on thrones. We have finally been awarded thrones.
They bought them here just for us.
I mean, some people want, like, you know, sort of gold, platinum, YouTube rewards, stuff like that, you know, the nice little plaque, but throne will do us, I reckon.
Yeah, so in future that you'll find Andy's got that in his living room.
Yeah, that's it, just going to carry it off with me. But it is a really, really cool castle, you know, it's, if nothing else, even if we didn't see any white ladies or, you know, sort of figures of ghosts on the walls guarding it, although, you know, I did have that little moment where I thought I saw something that was rain.
We were a bit spooked.
Yeah, it's just, you know, out the corner of the eye. But then so many of these stories are just that, you know, sort of little bits out the corner of your eye. And I'm not saying that's what I saw. I'm saying, you know, maybe it's just little tricks of the eye like that. And if you're up in a dark, spooky place, it's kind of natural, really, isn't it, to sort of be on the lookout for little things, watching for things in the shadows.
Yeah.
But would you do it alone up there? Would you sleep alone up there?
I sleep up there. That's it. Well, I mean, we did sleep here in
We
the
slept
grounds
here,
of the
but
castle.
we have a couple of tents over there, so you know.
Yeah, but ghosts can go through fabric.
They can, but there's one thing sleeping out in the sort of outer bailey. There's another thing sleeping up in the ruins. Well, I mean, would you spend a night alone up in the ruins?
I don't know, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
All right, you've heard that. If we do this show again next year, I'll stay down here in my tent, and Craig's going to go up and spend the night up there alone.
Done.
But yeah, any final thoughts on it?
No, not really. I think we've said it all now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. This was sort of a bit of an unexpected one for us that, you know, we weren't sure was definitely going to happen, but very glad it did. So thank you to Corfe Castle and the National Trust again. If nothing else, it has been awesome just staying inside Corfe Castle. I mean, I know you've done it before with the Vike.
Yeah, not for a while. That was pre the pandemic years, but we did do, yeah.
And it did feel a little, I don't know, like it's one, again, if we are going to go and sort of record something like this, it's going to be a bit harder with lots and lots of Vikings about. We kind of had the place to ourselves, which was pretty special.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely worth a visit if you've not been to Corfe Castle, as hopefully we've shown. It's a pretty epic ruin.
They
And
ruined it.
Ruined it. Oh, slighted. But yeah, I don't know if I would want to spend a night up there, to be honest. I would, because I feel like I'd have to, because I couldn't. If you were willing to, I couldn't not do it. But it's I think it would creep me out a little bit. But it's just, I think it's just, again, that it's that sort of primitive brain thing of just being overly cautious of everything in the shadows. Plus, if you go for a walk, there are several places up there you could easily plummet down. I guess that is one of the scarier things as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Got to watch your footing.
Maybe find the original oubliette and fall down there. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up then. As you can see, we're a little bit tired. Craig's suffering because he insisted on drinking all that mead.
It wasn't even good mead.
It wasn't even good mead. That's the point. That's the point. If it was good
But
mead,
it was
wouldn't have
mead
the headache.
nonetheless. Oh, we did have an incident when we were sat here last night drinking where I could see a light kept appearing in the sky behind where the camera is, and we were watching for ages, and it would come and it would move about and it would disappear.
So we did see a UFO, but you know, it just wasn't on camera.
But we realised after a while it was car headlights reflecting off the very top of a metal pole from some scaffolding. But it
And
gave an interesting effect because sometimes it looked like a light streaking across the sky. So there you go, folks. UFOs are just scaffolding in disguise.
well, throughout history, that did make me actually. I meant to say, like, I went to bed and, like, you know, lay there for a moment and thought, hang on, I should have mentioned this. But I think, I mean, there's a good chance in recent years, the way that headlights do shine off things, reflect off things, for these explanations of, you know, sort of ghostly lights seen on the walls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think some of those might have been car headlights, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you're walking up, you've had a few beers in the Greyhound or the Fox or something, and you're sort of walking home and you see this like weird dappled sort of patches of light shining on the tops of the towers. But yeah, that was, because I did sort of cast a glance up there, and that was kind of an effect, which may have been the scaffolding that's currently on the keep, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting, and yeah, as with a lot of these things, it's when your brain's heightened to that sort of everything's dark, everything's spooky, and you see something just slightly out of the ordinary, all of a sudden it becomes this massive, you know, yep, that's definitely a ghost or a UFO. Got a skull there.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it yet.
I know.
That's for after Wyrd, and that's already happened because we're recording
Time
out of
isn't
order,
linear.
so you can't mention that.
But I feel like I have to
No, you can't.
address the skull.
No, this is the famous skull from the last after Wyrd.
Oh, that one that I know all about. So yeah.
Yes, so like and follow us on social media. Head to our Substack, follow us there to get updated whenever we release something new, and you can become a paying subscriber if you like. We are going to try and post some new content for paying subscribers soon, like some behind the scenes stuff, because we've got a little road trip coming up.
We wanted to do that last night, but by the time we actually thought of it, the camera battery was dying, and yeah, we were too scared of ghosts up there, to be honest. So, but yeah, we'll.
We have a road trip coming up, so we're going to try and post some exclusive, shorter content, but sort of behind the scenes, I think.
Mostly little videos of me messing with Craig while he's asleep.
Yes. So anyway, on that note, I've been Craig.
And I've been Andy. I've been Andy mostly.
Someone. Yes, I need to go and be the Saxon forager. So yeah, until next time.
Stay weird. Cool.
Stay weird.